Hey, it's Soul with a reference guide to gearing in Season 1 of Dragonflight. Hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and catch me on stream, twitch.com/SoulSoBreezy. We're using a handy dandy visual aid of my making. It's a sheet that sources where to get your desired item level. I'm here to give more details and context, and you, viewer, can do what you want. Access to this sheet can be found in the video description below. You can just make your own copy and do whatever you want with it. Let's start by talking about pre-season gearing, which sort of caps our gearing out at item level 372 pieces, with one exception. You've just reached max level, so where do you go and what do you do? Dungeons are going to be your most reliable spot to hit, but your first stop is going to be your map and world quests. Take a look and grab any gear that you can get for pure item level. The gear you get can range anywhere between an item level of 340 all the way up to 363, maybe a bit higher, I just haven't seen it. There are no requirements to get into normal difficulty dungeons. Okay, actually, well, there is. It's 180, but I'm sure that you'll be fine meeting that. Your initial goal is to get to an average item level of 342. That's going to get you into heroic dungeons, which drop item level 359 gear. As you complete easy outdoor content and dungeons, you're going to notice these Titan training matrices. These are crafting reagents that can be put into new gear or recrafted into existing crafted gear to raise their item level. For example, running into a heroic dungeon has a chance to drop a matrix rank 3. With only a few materials, and believe me, it's pretty reasonable on the material requirement, you can have a piece of heroic gear crafted for you. Just set up a crafting order for something that you want, provide the rest of the materials needed, cross your fingers, and if you've offered up a reasonable price, someone will just make it for you. Or bug a friend, make them feel useful. These crafting orders are great for filling out gaps in your item level because you can choose what you want made. Eventually you'll break into mythic dungeons, which drop 372s. They also drop Titan Matrix rank 4s, which let you make 372s, or upgrade your current crafted gear to 372s via recrafting. A skilled crafter may be able to craft them up to item level 382. Unfortunately, Mythic Zeros are still subject to a weekly lockout, but Heroics are not. So in theory, one could farm Heroics like crazy, and gear up through both Heroic dungeon drops with crafted gear to fill out the rest. On top of that, during the preseason, we're expected to get a Spark of Inspiration. It's a necessary reagent for making endgame epics. This makes for one item level 382 piece of gear that you can have crafted before the season starts. These come in limited quantities at the start, and you can't scrap crafted gear to get your Spark back to make something else entirely, so it's up to you to choose what gear to make, followed by getting the needed materials, including Primal Chaos, which is found in all sorts of endgame content. There's a reasonable but not guaranteed chance that this can be crafted before the season starts. That mostly depends on how quickly one can farm up this Primal Chaos. PvPers have gameplay options from battlegrounds to war mode activities. During the preseason, they'll be fighting each other for gear that isn't very impressive in the outdoor world actually. It's not even great in war mode, but in instance PvP they're crazy powerful. They'll eclipse anyone in PvE gear. Gear from War Mode has a PvP item level of 408, but with Honor the item level is 411. If that sounds a bit daunting, crafters will eventually get a hold of recipes to make cheap starter PvP gear that has a PvP item level of 398. Quick blurb on PvP gear. It was a little while back that the WoW team decided to make PvP item level kick in only in instance PvP, and not in War Mode. This means that players cannot expect to have this elevated item level to give them an advantage in outdoor content, even if it's not PvP. If a top PvPer happens to encounter a top raider or a Mythic Plus person outside of skill, the PvPer is likely to get turned into lunch meat. On the flip side though, getting into instance PvP is a lot easier, and the gear difference between new PvPers and elite gladiators is much more narrow than in previous expansions. Let's take a step back and summarize the preseason. At max level, you want to get whatever you can from World Quest content and farm normal dungeons until you're eligible for Heroic dungeons, which is item level 342. Then you want to hard stop and just grind Heroics for a while, picking up 359 gear as well as Titan matrices to fill gaps that you'll eventually have. And hopefully you'll have access to crafting resources. Once you feel comfortable, complete your round of Mythic Zeros for gear. Hopefully you'll get some Titan Matrix 4s for some bonus item level. Complete the quest to get a Primal Infusion, then consider carefully which gear slot you want to create an epic item for, or hold off for now in case you want to wait until the season begins. At best, you're going to be in a mix of Mythic 0 and crafted gear. This should put you at a pretty comfortable place for surviving most world content. If you're mostly into PvP, your best bet really would be to just stick to Battlegrounds and maybe War Mode. The gear there is simply in a class of its own. World content may or may not be relevant to you, which slightly limits your early gearing. The weekly reputation quest requires a bit of side farming that you might not be interested in, but decent gear does drop from it. I'd only really consider this though if you're also into world content, otherwise your time is better spent farming heroics. When Season 1 begins, most everything opens up, with the exception of Raid Finder difficulty for Vault of the Incarnate. It's estimated that you need an item level of 361. This requirement is consistent with how it worked out for Season 4 of Shadowlands. By now, you're hopefully used to the motions and can immediately dive into Season 1 content. Most everyone is probably going to think that they're the hotness and is going to try to jump into the highest keys they can find or make. Play at your own risk, I say, but +2s give 376s and 382 in the vault. Depending on what the Valor cap is, it might be worth it to live in the lower brackets for a while, farming up gear to upgrade later when you get accustomed to the dungeons a bit more. Definitely by this point, outdoor assaults will be available, and if you care about reputations, there's going to be a multitude of weekly events that award gear on top of this. There's a big weekly rep farming quest in the capital city. There's a siege involving the Draconoid and the Jarden, and you can make like a soup thing. All of these activities give stuff. It gives gear that you may need, but like world quests, you'll eventually outstrip it, and then you can live in the endgame that you want to. Your fastest method of gearing is as usual, a little bit of everything, but Mythic Plus is going to take up most of your time because you can keep farming it for gear, with Valor caps being the thing that eventually tires you out. Raids are, of course, raids, with their early strength being the possibility of getting tier gear. This guide is mostly about early gearing, but let's talk a little bit about the mid to long term. The Great Vault is familiar territory by now. Defeating 2, 5, and 8 bosses from the upcoming Vault raid will open up the 3 nodes. Completing 1, 4, and 8 mythic dungeons unlocks all 3. Farming up 1250, 2500, and then 5500 honor from rated PvP will fully unlock the PvP row. These days, crafted gear serves as a sort of bad luck protection on top of the vault. There are 2 special crafting reagents, a Primal Infusion and a Concentrated Primal Infusion. These are crafted by running high-level group content. And here's how they're made. You need 100 Primal Chaos, which drops from all sorts of endgame content. You also need 10 of these focus items. Primal Foci are guaranteed drops from heroic raid bosses, as well as mythic keys starting at +11. Concentrated Primal Foci for mythic gear will drop from +16s and higher, as well as mythic raid bosses. You're going to need 10 of these and they don't mix and match, and when they're put together with a Primal Chaos, an infusion is made. Heroic gear made by a skilled crafter can come out up to an item level of 405. Mythic gear can be crafted up to 418. It's not quite the highest item level bracket, but keep in mind that you can customize the stats, maybe add a special embellishment to make the gear cooler. Keep in mind too that tier gear is in play, as well as the inspiration catalyst to convert gear by this time, and crafted gear will not work, so consider your choice of crafted gear carefully. World content players in the longer term are going to find high-level gear to be a bit more scarce. With Season 1, the world bosses will be available, dropping item level 395 pieces. The Storm Assaults provide a long-term farm if not for the item level, it does give a full transmog set. The upgraded set has an item level of 385. Also, some lesser gear can be purchased as soon as one hits the Renown requirements. And at the end of the Renown track, they're able to get 1 Primal Infusion per faction, so that means 4 for the season. Pretty long term though, counting in the number of months it's going to take in order to get this crafted gear. That's quite the grind though. Reputation is not really a path to go down if you're looking for item level at a reasonable pace. Shortly into the season, there ought to be a fairly healthy supply of PvP gear for people who are getting started. But otherwise, PvPers will mostly be living in their own world, inside battlegrounds and raided battlegrounds, arenas, and war mode whenever they're queuing up or waiting for their buddies to log on. Maybe I'm missing something here, but gearing for PvP means just doing PvP, because everything else is a total waste of time. To summarize your first days of Season 1 gearing, cross your fingers and kill the world boss. Get yourself another spark of inspiration for crafting, and consider what crafted gear works best for you. Dungeons are going to be your fastest and most consistent way to gear, but raiding is no slouch either as the only early reliable source of tier pieces. That's going to mean at least for a little while, Raid Finder will be worth running for set bonuses if those bonuses are worth the trouble. Later on, other factors will be in play, like having more opportunities for crafted gear, the Inspiration Catalyst, and then hitting the milestones that let you upgrade your collected dungeon gear to higher levels. For now though, I hope this reference guide and I helped. If so, hit the like button, subscribe for more content, take this sheet with you if you want it, and I'll see you next time. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.